Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 3rd of June, 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, yesterday, Walter Bloomberg here, who basically is a Twitter account that monitors the Bloomberg terminal, put out an update that Google is going to begin letting advertisers offer cryptocurrency kind of exchange ads and wallets targeting the US. So, some of you may remember from like a while ago, maybe it's been a while now, like a few months, maybe a year plus ago, Google was banning kind of cryptocurrency ads on their platforms, and I think Facebook was as well, and there's a bunch of that going on. But now, beginning August 3rd, people will be able to kind of like advertise cryptocurrency exchanges and wallets and target the US users as well by doing this. Now, you may be wondering, why am I talking about this? Well, I think this is quite bullish, right? Because at the end of the day, the advertising is, part of like this entire ecosystem, marketing, everything like that. And, running paid ads, using Google services, YouTube and Google search and things like that is a huge funnel for new users, especially those who may not know how to buy crypto, and they might just Google, buy crypto or buy Bitcoin or buy Ethereum. Being able to advertise there would actually be a huge revenue driver for Google for starters, and also be able and for people that want to advertise their services, be a huge funnel for getting new users to come in. Now, I think that maybe Google is doing this because maybe they found a way to kind of re-enable it without having to deal with the regulatory headaches of kind of this sort of advertising. And secondly, they may be seeing like the demand on their side of things, like the analytics that they run, where they're seeing like how many people are actually looking at crypto, and kind of done like a cost-benefit analysis on it, and realized that, wow, okay, we need to re-enable this. We need to allow crypto services to be able to advertise on our platforms, because there's a lot of money kind of being left on the table here. So I thought that was really interesting. I think, personally, I run an ad blocker, so I don't really see many ads on the internet, but there are tons and tons of people who don't. And, there's a lot of people that I've noticed that maybe older generations who don't use ad blockers. I mean, pretty much like it doesn't have to be that old. Like everyone over the age of maybe like 40 that I've ever helped with a computer issue, they don't run ad blockers. And not to say that it's just exclusive to older people. There are definitely lots of young people that don't either. But I think that, the older people are the ones that kind of like adopt new technologies a bit later on in their life cycle. So I'm pretty sure, like, say if Coinbase was to do an ad on Google services, they would be targeting that age group, especially because, as they come into crypto, they want an easy way to buy. They're not going to be using Uniswap or anything like that for quite a while. So allowing them to kind of buy from Coinbase is their kind of like front door here. And I'm sure Gemini and Kraken and all the other US based exchanges will be kind of advertising here as well. But yeah, I thought that was quite bullish. It allows for more people to come into this ecosystem, whether that's just to, I guess, buy some crypto from an exchange and just like have it sitting there. That's still getting more and more people involved in crypto, and inevitably some of those will fall down the Ethereum and DeFi rabbit hole, which is what we all want. And Coinbase, especially in the US, is very aligned with Ethereum and DeFi, so that's another positive aspect of this. So yeah, really cool to see this kind of from Google here. So the Wall Street Journal put out a piece today covering Ethereum and DeFi here. Now, this is huge. I mean, the Wall Street Journal is a very big publication, specifically in the US here. So anything that they kind of publish is going to get eyeballs on it. But basically, this piece covers DeFi. You can see the really nice Ethereum kind of header image here with the ETH logo splattered everywhere. And in this piece, I won't read the whole thing to you. You can go check it out. It'll be linked in the YouTube description. But in this piece, they basically describe what decentralized finance is, kind of what it's offering, how it all works, how it's been growing over time, the fact that most of it is built on Ethereum right now, and how it compares to like its centralized counterparts and things like that. And I think they briefly touched on NFTs as well, if I remember correctly from this. So this is really cool. Generally, mainstream media has been pretty crappy at covering crypto. There's plenty of articles out there that do like a very poor job of not only covering kind of Bitcoin, but covering Ethereum specifically, where they may kind of like mention that it's something got to do with Bitcoin, even though it's got nothing to do with Bitcoin. It's got everything to do with Ethereum, but they may be doing that for clicks, right? Like the SEO and stuff like that. And more people recognize the Bitcoin name than Ethereum. And I get that. But at the same time, when you're a journalist or like you're a publication like this, you have a responsibility to inform your readers and be truth-based and fact-based here. So it's good to see that this piece from the Wall Street Journal is doing exactly that, rather than being kind of like trash trash, I guess, like media that I've seen a lot of. And it's always funny when I read the comments here. Sometimes I read the comments on these kind of posts to see what people are saying. And one person was saying here that everyone thinks DeFi stands for decentralized finance, when in fact it stands for degenerate finance. Obviously because of like the kind of yields being high in DeFi due to people wanting to go like leverage long on assets and things like that and stuff like that. And then this person's calling like, 2021 the year of the bubbles because the Fed is printing, it's producing like the, results like DeFi and things like that. I think once again, missing, the forest for the trees. People like to do that a lot, right? Where they're kind of looking at the speculative side of it and thinking that, that's all it is. It's only the casino aspect of it. That's all it's going to ever amount to. And I think that generally if more people knew how the traditional finance worked, they would view it in the same way. It's just that DeFi, Ethereum, crypto makes it all very transparent. I mean, if any of you have seen the movie The Big Short that covered what happened in 2008 with the big crash and how that came about, that was really got to do with like a speculative mania and degeneracy, if you want to call it that, and kind of like all this dodgy stuff going on. Whereas within, DeFi and within crypto, you could say that there's like obviously a ton of speculation, there's a lot of gambling and stuff like that. But I think the main positive is that we can actually see what's going on. We can account for everything. We can see if something's under collateralized. We can see if some protocol, doesn't have the money that it's supposed to have. It's all enforced by code and by math and by smart contracts. And whenever something goes wrong, we can see it happening straight away. There's no need to wait. You can't sweep it under the rug. It is all on chain. If you're on chain, then everything that ever happens to your protocol is viewable by literally everyone in the world. They can simply either go to one of the many block explorers out there, or they can spin up their own node and monitor the network themselves if they want to. So I think that right there is like the kind of 100x improvement over the traditional system already, in the fact that it's transparent. And that comes with its trade-offs. The trade-off being that everyone can see all the degeneracy going on. Everyone can see that people are speculating on random ERC20 tokens with silly names and dog tokens and all that sort of stuff. But if you were able to see kind of like what goes on Wall Street as transparently, then these people would probably have the same opinion as they do of DeFi. And I think they already do. I think Wall Street in general has a very bad reputation. Not the Wall Street Journal, but like Wall Street, where all the kind of like financial services run out of, and all the kind of like stock market trading goes on, things like that. I think generally that's not viewed very well these days, but for the longest time it was, and people didn't really realize what was going on there until I guess post 2008. A lot more people woke up to it, and these days, I mean, the stock market looks even worse than crypto. I'm sure a lot of you have seen what's happening with the AMC stock, and it's this trend of like meme stocks where people get on like TikTok and anything that's on Robinhood, they're just going to speculate on and kind of pump it up through memes and things like that. It's got no basis in reality. And a lot of it does have to do with, I think, the Federal Reserve printing and just central bank printing in general. There's a lot of free money floating around. There's a lot of inflation going on. And that's going into assets like stocks and crypto and property and all this sort of stuff. So you can see inflation playing out right before your eyes. You don't need to kind of like have research done on this. Everyone can see this. And it's not only playing out in those assets, it's playing out in kind of like, prices for groceries and prices in things like cars. And I mean, the used car market in Australia has ballooned, like it's gone crazy, and properties as well and things like that. So I think that's got a lot to do with it as well. But still good to see the Wall Street Journal covering this. It was quite a nice piece. They did go through some of the negatives of what's happening within the industry, and kind of like, but like, also going covering the value prop of it as well. So yeah, I guess kudos to the Wall Street Journal for covering Ethereum and DeFi here. So Justin Drake put out a really interesting kind of like flow chart, I guess you could call it here, where he starts, and for those who listening, you won't be able to see this, but it's linked in the YouTube description. But this chart basically starts from a kind of like bubble here that says ETH price appreciation. And then this is what that leads to. So it leads to a bunch of different things: legitimacy by performance, and economic bandwidth, ETH stake appreciation, and EF treasury appreciation. Now, from legitimacy by performance, that gets press covering, Ethereum and kind of like DeFi and all that sort of stuff. It attracts more builders and it attracts more users. Then this leads to more on-chain activity, which leads to more fee burn, which leads to more monetary soundness, which means to more ETH staking inflows, which leads to an increased cost of attack, which finally leads to Ethereum security. Now, secondly, here we have economic bandwidth, which leads to like ETH as economic bandwidth. So ETH as use within DeFi, for example, as collateral within DeFi. This obviously leads to more on-chain activity, which also leads to increased staking rewards, which leads to ETH staking inflows, increased cost of attack, Ethereum security again, and it also leads to the fee burn kind of aspect to it as well. Now, the next point here is ETH stake appreciation. So obviously, as the ETH price goes up, the security of the beacon chain goes up because the I guess cost to attack goes up. So that's what the flowchart is showing here. And then finally, EF, the Ethereum Foundation treasury appreciation, aka as ETH goes up in value, the Ethereum Foundation has more money to spend on things like research and development for the Ethereum protocol, which again leads to increased Ethereum security here. So this will be linked in the YouTube description for those who want to check out the flowchart for yourself. But this is exactly what myself and a lot of other people in the Ethereum community have been saying for years, in that the ETH price going up is good for so many different reasons. It is not just good for making people rich or making people lots of money, right? To me, that has always been like a positive side effect. I think the real kind of value add is exactly what Justin Drake is pointing out in his flowchart here, in that all of this leads to higher security for the Ethereum network, which is exactly what we want. Because as Justin Drake points out here, the goal of at least the ETH2 effort is to have World War III grade security, which means that if there was something like another world war, which decimated a lot of the infrastructure in the world, the Ethereum network should be able to either continue running or be able to be bootstrapped again with low trust assumptions if for some reason it went offline due to any number of reasons. And it should be incredibly hard to attack the network by any kind of like nation state or any kind of actor out there. And that all goes back to ETH price appreciation at the end of the day. Because if the ETH price is at $10, or like, I mean, you should really say market cap, I guess, but like for the sake of the argument, I'll just say if the ETH price was $10, the network security would be very, very low. It'd be very cheap to attack it. The kind of like press coverage would be like non-existent. The builders would be very kind of like essentially non-existent too. Users the same kind of boat here. The economic bandwidth would be very low, what we could use within DeFi and things like that. So from that perspective, you can even look back at when ETH was $10. That was the last time ETH was $10 was early 2017. And I know 2017 was a pretty big bull market, but early 2017, you can go look at all the metrics for the Ethereum network. They were very, very low. The Ethereum network was hardly being used. It was essentially almost a ghost chain, if you kind of like can call it that. But and the same plays out for 2016. And even if you go back to when ETH was like $1 in 2015, the network was basically very much a ghost chain. There was nothing happening on there. Now, as the price was going up, network activity increased. We had more builders, more users, all that good stuff. And then it kind of feeds off itself. As the ETH price goes up, it attracts more people. As more people come into the ecosystem, these people buy ETH price goes up, more people come in, blah, 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 right? It's just like this constant cycle that plays out again and again and again. And it all traces back to the ETH price going up. That's how we get the most users in these ecosystem. And it's not just ETH, right? It's also all the other assets in kind of like the Ethereum universe and outside of it too, whether any of these assets going up just brings in more people. And that's why I've always said that I think that even though it's annoying to see like something like Dogecoin going up and like a lot in value when it's just literally just a meme coin, it is very positive overall for the ecosystem because it does a very good job of bringing in a ton of new users. And these users, not all of them, maybe most of them will just come and kind of like gamble on Dogecoin and then go away later. But a lot of them will stay, will stick around, will get involved with things that, mean something, like Ethereum, like DeFi. And, of course, these people are going to buy ETH as well. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who spends time in the Ethereum ecosystem that doesn't own ETH at this point. And I think that's another important point, is that in crypto generally, it's actually pretty wild how much of a crossover there is between the owners of the platforms and the assets and the users. Because for every user out there, pretty much all of them would own the assets of kind of like the things that they use. If you use Ethereum, then you're going to own ETH, even if it's just to pay for gas fees, even if it's just to use it as collateral so you can do some fancy stuff within DeFi, you're still going to own ETH. Now, if you have to kind of use like a bunch of other apps out there, or if you have to use the internet, you don't have to own any kind of like asset, right? If you want to use like an iPhone, you don't have to own Apple stock, and you don't have like technically you don't have to own a token of a DeFi app that you're kind of like I guess like interacting with. But the point is that there's much more kind of owners and users in the same bucket than there is in kind of like the Web 2 world. So I think that's another important point here. But a really great flow chart from Justin Drake here that shows exactly what a lot of us in the Ethereum ecosystem have been saying for quite a while. So definitely go check this out. It will be linked in the YouTube description below. So I mentioned, I think last week or the week before, that Alchemy, and basically an infrastructure provider for Ethereum, similar to Infura, announced that they were supporting Arbitrum. Well, that support is now live already. This is crazy, right? I mean, Arbitrum launched last week with their developer mainnet, and now Alchemy is ready and live for developers to tap into, and all the developers currently building on Arbitrum in anticipation for the public release in the next couple of weeks, or maybe a little bit longer than that. Maybe it takes over the next few weeks, but still, this is really, really cool because these, as I said, I think I said it last week, these are the core building blocks that need to be in place for these things to be used. You need these things, you need stuff like the graph, you need stuff like Alchemy and Infura, you need things like Etherscan or block explorers in general to be able to service end users and give them that really great DeFi experience that they're used to. Otherwise, end users would have to run their own full nodes, right? They would have to basically tap into that using their own kind of MetaMask wallet. They would have to basically directly interact with the smart contracts. You know, if there wasn't a front end or things like that, they would have to manually calculate a lot of the things that are happening on these front ends. Whereas services like the Graph and Alchemy and Infura or do this kind of like all for you, where you can query things. You don't have to use your own full node, but I highly recommend that you do. You don't have to, but I highly recommend that you do for added security here if you can. And also getting all the information like really quickly on the front ends. A lot of that is supplied by the Graph. Like a lot of you may have noticed that I think the Graph went down maybe, it was a little while ago now. It's probably 6 months ago or something like that. Probably maybe even longer than that. But it went down and like you would see like on the front end of a lot of the DeFi apps that you use, a lot of the information would be missing from there. And that's because the Graph provides that information. It's not that it doesn't exist. It's just that the apps use, or at least the front ends use the Graph to query that information to display it to you. You could access it yourself if you want, if you were to run an Ethereum full node. But that obviously is more difficult and has more overhead than just kind of offloading that to an infrastructure provider like the Graph or anything like that. So on that note, I think the Graph has Arbitrum support right now as well. I haven't seen it officially announced. Maybe it was announced a while ago, but definitely I think that they already have support there. But still, really cool to see Alchemy already having like their implementation live on Arbitrum here. I'm just like dying right now to, I guess, like get on Arbitrum because I know there's going to be a very, very nice app ecosystem on there from day one. Like I think they're going to deliver, and I think they're going to deliver in a big way, and I just can't wait to play around with it. So hopefully soon, hopefully this month, we'll see what happens there. So Deribit, a very popular options exchange for, I guess, like centralized options exchange for cryptocurrencies, posted this image today of the flippening and how the ETH options kind of like growth as a percentage of their total options volume has been kind of like, I guess, increasing rapidly over the last kind of, I guess, you could say maybe few months and catching up to Bitcoin here. So you can see that they started off with 100% Bitcoin back in 2018 because I think that's all they offered, but then they started offering Ethereum products. And you can see over time, especially since the start of this year, Ethereum kind of options products have become very, very popular and are at about 38.2% of the total volume. Whereas BTC is at 61.8% here, and that gap is closing fast. I think this is going to keep happening. As I've said before on the refuel, there is a definite market kind of like structure change happening right now with centralized exchanges where their ETH is doing more volume than Bitcoin. On spot volume, on options volume, it's growing as well. And there's a lot of people kind of like, I guess, trading their BTC for ETH and stuff like that too. And the ETH BTC ratio is going up and all that good stuff there. So this is just another kind of flippening, I guess, like that's happening right now, or potentially will happen in the future, where ETH is going to be leading against Bitcoin here. So yeah, just cool to see this again. I've gone over like all the flippenings that have been happening lately, and this is just another one under Ethereum's belt. So Gitcoin Grants round 10 is going live on June 16th till July 7th here. So this is going to be the biggest Gitcoin Grants round yet, and number 10 is getting really, really cool here. There's a bunch of sponsors, familiar names like Uniswap and Badger, Polygon. I mean, there's heaps of people here, the Graph and things like that. There's also going to be a hackathon running as well. So if you are a hacker, definitely kind of register for this. It'll be linked in the YouTube description below. But yeah, grants round 10, I think is going to be the biggest ever, simply because even though we kind of, I guess, like hit a bit of the snag recently with the prices, there's still people who have made a lot of money and over the kind of like last few months, and a lot of I guess sponsors have made a lot of money too, and will be putting this money up to kind of like sponsor the round as well. So yeah, I mean, and also it's funny because Gitcoin just did their airdrop to people with their GTC tokens, and I'm actually curious to see how many people either sell their GTC tokens for like ETH or stablecoins to be able to donate to this Gitcoin round, or they use those GTC tokens to donate to projects and things like that, which is, I think, something unique to this round because the token hasn't been out for the other rounds there. So yeah, really, really cool. Obviously, the Daily Gwei is going to be participating as a kind of like fund there. So if you want to donate, you can do it on June 16th. But I'll definitely cover it when the time comes there. But you should definitely get that money kind of ready to donate to all of your favorite projects, because I think there's going to be more projects than round 9, of course. There's going to be, hundreds of thousands of dollars of matching money up for grabs, maybe up to $1 million there. And, giving back to this ecosystem and giving back to the projects that have kind of like held this ecosystem together is definitely the way to go about it and the way to fund public goods here. So yeah, very much looking forward to Gitcoin Grants round 10. As I said, if you're a hacker, you can register for the virtual hackathon here. So I put out a tweet today when I was looking at some decentralized exchange volume growth, because I'm getting ready for this weekend's Daily Gwei Data Pump video. So yeah, that's coming out this weekend. So keep your eye out for that. But essentially, decentralized exchange volume on Ethereum last month, so May 2021, was $173 billion, which is a record. It is more than double the previous month, I think. I think April was $80 billion or something like that. But even more striking here was that in May of 2020, the volume was only $1.1 billion. So DEX volume has grown 150 times, or 150x, in just 12 months. And I finished off my tweet here saying that I think DeFi is going to obliterate traditional finance. I would say that it already is. You do not see this kind of growth in any fintech company, in any traditional finance company, no matter how hyped they are, no matter how big they are. Nothing grows this fast. And the beauty of it is that there is no KYC or AML here. All of these decentralized exchanges are able to be operated by anyone in the world, from anywhere in the world, any jurisdiction you want to. You can access this. Like, for example, you can access Uniswap from anywhere in the world. Even if you can't access the front end for some reason, you can still access the smart contracts on Ethereum here. Now, this is obviously not the only bit of growth that's been happening. Obviously, there's been a lot of growth on money market protocols. I saw that Aave was over $20 billion today or something like that, with value locked. A lot of ETH being locked, almost $10 million of ETH being locked in DeFi protocols, which is absolutely massive. And USD locked is up massively as well. And even if I was to go back to 2019, in May of 2019, I'm pretty sure decentralized exchange volume for the whole month was like 100. For the whole year. For the whole month. Was like maybe $200 million or something like that. Decentralized exchanges on Ethereum today do like $4 billion a day. So it's just funny how far the ecosystem has come in just, even if you go back to 2019, in just 24 months. And I can't even begin to imagine what the next 12 to 24 months is going to be like with the layer 2 rollout, with the fact that DeFi is now kind of becoming like a mainstream thing where people are not questioning it anymore. It's just become an inevitability, and lots of traditional finance folks are trying to get in, trying to build apps, trying to fund things, trying to play in this ecosystem. I mean, I can't even imagine what it's going to be like. Will we see a $1 trillion volume on DEXs in 1 month coming up? Maybe even this year. I think maybe, depending on how crazy things get, depending on if the layer 2s are out there, I very much think that we can see a $1 trillion month, which is just insane. I mean, when you think about it, that's more than I think, some traditional stock markets do around the world. And I don't know about the US stock markets. I think they do more than that. But the fact that decentralized exchange volumes are getting just continue to grow. Like, they haven't slowed down. The high fees on Ethereum, the relatively low scalability and things like that haven't really slowed this down at all. So once we get layer 2, I mean, geez, I can't even begin to imagine how explosive that's going to be. But still, DeFi is just going to I know I say it a lot, but DeFi isn't 100x, isn't 1000x. It's not even a 10,000x. I would say that DeFi is a 100,000 times improvement over traditional finance. Because if you think about it, I consider stuff like payments to be DeFi. I know this is like a contested thing, but if you just look at payments as like a very, I guess, a simple example here, if you need to send money from one side of the world to the other, usually it's going to take you, maybe 2 to 3 days, right, in a wire transfer. And to do a wire transfer, you have to be KYC and AML. You have to have a bank account, or you have to use a service that's going to charge you some kind of like ridiculous fee to do this. Now, when you do that with Ethereum, yes, okay, the layer 1 fees can be high, but to send tokens in ETH is relatively cheap. So let's just say it's going to cost you $5 to send some tokens to the other side of the world in kind of gas fees here. And that's just on layer 1. We're going to have layer 2, which is going to obviously dramatically reduce these fees. But even just layer 1, $5 to send these funds over to someone on the other side of the world, anywhere in the world, within 13 seconds, with no KYC, no AML, none of that noise. You don't need to do any of that. 13 seconds compared to 2 to 3 days, yeah, that's 100,000 times improvement. Think about the money markets, lending and borrowing. Yes, you have to over-collateralize, but you can do so instantly. You can put ETH into Maker, into Aave, into Compound, whatever, instantly get a stablecoin loan. Or you can put your stablecoins into Alchemix and instantly get a loan on that, and then have your loan pay itself off. I mean, I can go on forever about why DeFi is better than traditional finance and why I believe it's 100,000x better, but I think, we all use it every day. Like, at least, like, I know I do. We're all, like, most of us, I think, would be considered power users compared to the average user. And we're still, like, at the very early stages of this. So to say that DeFi is going to obliterate traditional finance is putting it kindly. I think DeFi is going to delete traditional finance from people's memories. And I think that, in 10 years, people are going to be like, why were we even using stuff like the traditional finance system? Why did it take us so long to digitize value, to digitize a monetary system, to make it, to essentially pull it into the 21st century, just like everything else has been pulled into the 21st century? Well, I think it took a while because we had to solve a bunch of fundamental computer science problems, like the Byzantine generals problem that Bitcoin solved, and we had to basically build a bunch of different things around that. We had to obviously scale this thing too, which took a lot of time. We had to basically upgrade the core infrastructure with ETH2 and stuff like that. But the fact that we're almost there, it may take another few years to kind of get to where we want to get to, but the fact that we're almost there already is insane. And I think within 10 years, people are going to be thinking to themselves, how do we ever live without DeFi? How do we ever live without Ethereum? So very, very excited to see how the growth plays out here over the next 12 to 24 months. I'm sure we're going to see a $1 trillion month for DEXs sooner rather than later, and it's going to be wild. It's going to send, I guess, like shockwaves, because that's a big number, right? It's the big numbers that people kind of like love to kind of, I guess, like talk about, and it's very easy for press to get coverage on these big numbers when they kind of like say them. So yeah, I'm very, very much looking forward to that. So Gnosis announced yesterday that they've joined forces with Erigon, which is formerly known as the TurboGeth Ethereum client, and they will be deprecating the Open Ethereum codebase. So for those of you who don't know, Open Ethereum was an Ethereum client that was basically taken over by Gnosis, and it was a fork of Parity, which was the original codebase of the Parity client. Now, Parity, the company, ended up kind of like stopping support for the Parity client because they went all in on Polkadot. So Gnosis took over that, but now they're deprecating the Open Ethereum legacy codebase in favor of helping out the Erigon team, which obviously was formerly TurboGeth. Now, for those of you who don't know, I kind of like talked about TurboGeth and Erigon and what they're trying to do and how kind of like how they're improving the Ethereum kind of client space here. They're doing a lot of amazing work. I mean, I've been kind of seeing developers kind of praising this client as being one of the best clients they've ever used. It's very good for syncing. It syncs faster than kind of like vanilla Geth here. And there's a bunch of different features included in this, and you can sync. Apparently, you're going to be able to sync on a hard drive. That's the first time, I think, for a long time, you've been able to sync an Ethereum client on a hard drive, because normally you need a solid state drive to do it. So that's really exciting too. But I think this makes a lot of sense, because the Open Ethereum client was based on a legacy code base, the Parity code base, which obviously, as I said, Parity wasn't maintaining that anymore. And I think it came with a lot of dead weight and baggage for Gnosis that they didn't want to, that at this point, they're like, well, why are we dealing with this when we have like a really great client in Erigon that we could be using? So I think this is a really positive step forward. I'm yet to sync one of these clients. I think I'm going to do that this weekend, actually. Get one of these Erigon clients up and running, see what all the fuss is about, because it seems very exciting. I already run a Geth full node, and I was running an Open Ethereum one a few months ago, but I stopped that. So I think that Erigon, is the future here. Geth and Erigon, and there's Nethermind. There's a bunch of other ones out there like Besu as well. But I think at the moment Geth is the majority of the network. So anything we can do to get Geth to, like, I guess, less than that, ideally maybe instead of being 85%, something like 60%, and then Erigon and Nethermind taking up the other kind of parts there would be really positive. So yeah, cool to see this, and cool for Gnosis to step up to the plate and kind of, I guess, join this effort here, I guess, with funding and human capital. So lastly, there was a question from Unchained Dreamer on yesterday's refuel that I wanted to kind of like address on today's refuel. And they asked, what are your views on potential acquisitions or mergers? Companies like Facebook or Amazon have shut down many competitors by buying them or doing price wars. Can something like that happen in the L2, L1 space, like a vampire attack? I think that this question I have talked about on the refuel before. If a lot of you will remember, Yearn started acquiring apps and bringing it into its kind of like ecosystem a few months ago. So something like Pickle Finance was a yield aggregator that Yearn brought under its umbrella because it kind of wanted to, I guess, like maybe not kill off the other yield farming competition, but kind of like bring it in-house sort of thing, and kind of like share developer resources, share capital, share brain power, all that kind of stuff there. So I've already seen this play out. Now, in terms of like what's it happening with different layer 2s, I don't know. This is a funny question, because when you kind of like think about what a layer 2 is, it's essentially another chain that lives on top of Ethereum but is secured by Ethereum. A lot of these layer 2s are going to have their own tokens. So could, say, Arbitrum be acquired by Optimism, for example? Technically, the Arbitrum company, or at least the company that houses the people that launched Arbitrum, the core developers, could be acquired by Optimism, could be acquired by another company, and that would be all well and dandy. But the thing is, the code is open source for a lot of these things. So even if the team gets acquired, someone could fork the code and do whatever they kind of like wanted with it. If they didn't like the fact that, say, Facebook acquired some layer 2 devs or something like that, they could fork that and create their own instance of it, and essentially start it from scratch if they wanted to. And if they got enough users to come over, well, then, yeah, they would get kind of usage on that platform there. So I think that while it's possible for these kind of like acquisitions to happen, I don't think it's very feasible in an open source world. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, what happens if kind of like the Uniswap team was acquired and, people can't fork the UniV3 code base because it's got a copyright license on it? Well, I mean, in Uniswap's case, UniV3 is completely decentralized. Just because someone buys if someone was to acquire the core Uniswap team, doesn't mean that the core Uniswap team could do anything drastic to change kind of the protocol. They could do a Uniswap v4, but no one is forced to kind of adopt that. And yes, the Uniswap team has a lot of Uni tokens. They could kind of like sway governance and things like that. But if people saw this happening, I think they would, and it was bad for the protocol, I think they would reject the UniV3 and that kind of like, I guess, was doing that, and they'd fork it, or some other kind of protocol, some competing protocol like SushiSwap or something like that would, I guess, like get more market share because of that. So I think when thinking about these things, it's all about the social layer. It's all about how people react. If people have choices in an open source world and the capital can move very freely, I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to move between platforms depending on I guess what happens post kind of acquisition here or post merger. So hopefully that answers your question, Unchained Dreamer. And for those who have other questions about things, definitely pop into the Discord channel, into the AMA series channel, and drop them in there. I do an AMA every 2 weeks, as some of you may know, and I answer those questions on the AMA as well there. So yeah, if you want your questions answered, do drop them in there, and I will get to them when I can. But for now, I think that's it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the Discord channel. Join the Discord channel. Subscribe to the newsletter, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.